Hi everyone, and welcome to another part of the Web3.js tutorials. In this part we're going to also add another part to the codes we wrote for the index.js instead of the local project. So this is a local net, we are still in the local net, and we're going to add some codes that also going to be useful for the test net, the main net, and so on. So it's a Web3 function that we're going to write. So in this part we're going to see if we can in some way see the past history of a smart contract. So imagine that you've deployed a smart contract, you've did some job on it, such as, for example, transferring money or transferring tokens, and interacted with the smart contract. Also, you called some of the states of the blockchain instead of that smart contract. So now we want to see if you can get those events. And if you can remember from the previous course on the Solidity tutorials, we had the events on we might have the events on our smart contract. As you can see here, we have event transfer, we've defined it, and notice that you might have these events in your smart contract related to ERC20 tokens that is built in, and also have it a variable else. So depending on the event and also the methods, you can call the history of your smart contract and take a look at it, filter it, or get some data from it. Notice that we have the same things on Etherscan, and also we have the same thing on the Ganache. So here, for example, you can take a look at the transactions and filter them and take a look at some of the data inside of it. And this is exactly the thing we want to do. We want to have our own kind of filtering the data of this smart contract, so that later if we want to show it on some kind of a website or the app, we will be able to do that. So this function that I'm going to write here is really useful. So it's also going to be different from the ones that we've written here. So I'm going to write it somewhere else. So for that we need the Web3, and we'll need to define it in a way that our network is. So if it's a local network, we will use Ganache. If it's a testnet, we could use Sepolia, which I'm going to teach you in the next tutorials. And if it's mainnet, we'll need to define mainnet. So here Web3 is right over here, as you can see. So I'm gonna use it outside of this function execute sequentially. I'm gonna use it somewhere elsewhere here because it's just a test. And what I'm gonna do here is add a function to get the past events. So the function that we'll be using is web3 .eth.get past logs, and notice that this is going to be a very useful one, but so many of the developers out there might not know about this. So make sure you keep it inside of your source code or wherever you save your code, because this is going to be a lot useful in the future when you want to develop the app and you want to extract some data from the smart contract that you've already deployed. Anyway, so here we will get the past log. So this address is the address of the smart contract that you've already deployed. So we can get it from the deployed data JSON file, right? So we will need to get this address and use it in order to see what happens. And notice that because I've restarted Ganache, so I will need to first deploy the smart contract and then use it here. So anyway, here I'm gonna just write contract address, but later I'm gonna add also the code related to that part. So let's do it right now. Let's get the data from it, and notice that here we used to get the deployed data like this. So what I'm gonna do is to copy this part So we have the contract address up to here. I'm going to copy it and paste it right before using this get pass logs. So we have the file data, we have the contract address here, and we can use it instead of this function. And the next thing I'm going to need here is from block. So we start from the very first block if you want to get all of the events up to the very latest block. So I can either write 0x1 for the first block, or alternatively I can write earliest like this. So no difference, but notice that if you're writing earliest, it needs to be a string. So next thing I'm gonna need here is, let me check something else. Okay, we have a comma here and to block. So for this one we use latest, and this we're not sure in what block we are, but we want to get the very latest one that we've used. So the next thing is also very important, especially if you want to filter the kind of data that you get. But if you don't want to filter that and you want to get all the data, you can just put null here, and it shows that you want to get all of the data. But we're going to talk about what's inside of this topic, and we'll also show you how to filter that and be able to apply your changes. So anyway, for now we can just write .then and then console.log the result, console.log. So by doing this, console.log will console.log this, the result of this function, and so we don't write anything inside of the parentheses, we don't open the parentheses anyway. So here we've got the contract address. So now all we need to do is to run this execute sequentially once again, and make sure everything works well. Also we need to update the private key address 1 and address 2. So what I'm gonna do is to open Ganache and copy the address here. I'm gonna copy this. This is my first address. Now the second address, you can just double click and get the whole address instead of just using your cursor to get it all. And now I can get the private key of the first address like this. Head over to the VS Code and paste it over here. You can double click and get the whole private key. And now I can save the code and run it. So what I can do here is to run node.index.js, and notice that some processes has happened, and now here we've got what we needed. So these are the balances. As you can remember, we just got the balances before and after. And now what I'm gonna do is to check why this one is not working. So probably we need to also check what's going on here. So now let me make some changes here. Probably the problem is with this one, and it needs to be instead of string. So let me save this. And something else, the problem here is that we probably need to cut this and paste it inside of the execute sequentially, because we need to wait for all of this process to happen, and then we go after the rest of the jobs. So I will explain why this is happening. As you can see here, we have an empty array, which is a result of this one because we have no events, and this happens before the execute sequentially. And the reason is it takes some time for execute sequentially to happen, right? It takes some time for the transaction to be signed, and all the process happens and get the balance. But because these two functions are asynchronous in JavaScript, first of all, get pass logs will be run and then the other ones will happen. But once we put it inside of the execute sequentially, then this is not going to happen. So make sure you write it right over here in order to prevent it from happening. So let me save this and rerun it. Now, as you can see, it might take some time, and as you can see, we've got the result we wanted, right? Right now, we're getting the get pass logs here, which is different from the results here. As you can see, at the end, we had the balances, right? But right now, at the end, we have something else, which is the history of the smart contracts that has happened. So after getting the balances of the final values like this, we have this JSON data, right, which contains the data of our smart contracts. So there's only one data, and as you can see, we have the topics here. So as you can see, we wrote the topics now because we wanted to get all of the get pass logs, all of the logs of this smart contract, and here it shows what they are. I'm going to tell you what this is. This is the conversion of the transfer events using the SHA tree of Web3. So I'm gonna write the function for you to better understand it, and it helps you to filter the events and also the logs inside of your smart contract. Notice that this address is very much like this address, right? So you can see some similarities, but there are some modifications on the addresses. As you can see, this address right over here is pretty much like this address right over here. So every letter has been converted to lowercase, and we have a number of zeros before that, right? So interesting. So you can see the similarities here, and you can filter these events inside of this web3.if.get pass logs like this. So for example, you want to get all of the events, transfer events from this address to this address. You want to just filter those, and you don't want the other addresses to be included inside of this log. So you can just specify the topics like this in order to filter the events and also filter the methods that you're using instead of the get pass logs. So this is really useful, and I really recommend doing this. Also, if you want to filter by the transaction hash, you can use this transaction hash, bring it over here inside of the JSON of this function, JSON data that you enter into this function, and filter your smart contract in order to find this transaction hash, right? So this is a really useful function. I really recommend it to have inside of your portfolio so that later you can use it and also showcase your own talents. So once again, if you didn't understand, this is the address of the sender, this is address of the receiver. So if you're just taking a look at this address and you don't care about this address, so you can say that if this address is the second one, so this is a transfer from this and this is a sale, right? So this address, which starts with 36 and ends with C5, is selling those tokens, meaning that is transferring to this address, right? And if this address is the third one, it is buying those tokens, right? So if you want to differentiate the buy and sale, you can just do it this way. And if you just want to know in general the transfer of this address, you can easily track it this way, right? So this is a really tricky part. You can really play with this topics part, and notice that you need to convert this format of address to this one. And the way to do this is really easy. If you know some JavaScript scripting, you will understand how to slice these strings to this, and then make it lowercase, and then add this string to the string that has been resulted, and get this string, right? Then you place it over here you place it inside of the topics. And also I'm going to tell you how to convert the transfer event to be put over here. That could be also used as the method. So now let's do this. If you want to write the event, right? You want to convert it to a kind of a hash like this, a kind of a encrypted hash. You can write it this way. So remember we had this transfer event right over here. So it contains some data, and it was an event. So we're gonna do the same thing, bring it over here and define that method. So I'm gonna write const method signature. That is actually event signature. Let me write it that way. Event signature, and it's gonna equal to exactly this event. So let me copy it, paste it over here, and notice that we need only the type of the data inside of it. So the first one is address, the second one is address, and the third one is uint256. So we don't write the name of the variables, instead we write the type of the variables, right? So this is the event signature. So we want to decode it to the encrypted hash like this. So what I'm gonna do, let me first console log that in order for you to see the result. Console.log, and what I'm gonna do here is to write web3.utils.sha3, and I'm gonna enter method signature. Method signature. As you can see, we've got it here, and there is this semicolon at the end. So we're gonna see what is this one and compare it with this one, right? They're gonna be exactly the same. So let me also add something else. I can write here, let me write transfer event signature has been encrypted to this, right? So here I can write something like this, and it's gonna work. So let me save this and rerun the project again. Oh, there seems to be a problem with this one. Well, I'm gonna check. So let me just first of all get it here. And oh, it's event signature, and that's why this is happening. Let's save this and rerun the code. And now it worked. So now transfer event signature has been encrypted to this, right? Now let's take a look at here. And so there seems to be a bit of difference between this and that, but we probably need to change some of the parts. So transfer address uint256, and so I found the reason why this is happening. This is a string, right? So this string needs to be exactly the way that this get pass logs is reading it, right? So it should be here, there should be just exactly this way, not even this way, because these two are different. The way this function works, web3utils.sha3 works, will differentiate this one with this one and also with this one. So this is the correct format of writing it, and there should be no spaces between the commas and the variables, right? The types of the variables. So once I save this and run the project one more time, you'll be able to see that there will be no difference between the this address and this address, right? But there used to be a difference, right? But right now there's no difference because this is a string right here, and this string is going to be encrypted into some kind of thing. This string needs to be exactly the way it is. So there shouldn't be spaces here because those spaces are going to affect the result coming out from the SHA-3, right? So make sure you do that in a correct way, and once you do that, you'll see that there is no difference between this and this. So then you can use this transfer event and write it inside of your topics, right? So you can write it inside of an array, and instead of that array, you will have 3 addresses. This SHA web3 from the event signature, and also the addresses of to address and from address. So this is the from address, this is the to address. So we don't have enough time to convert these 2 addresses, put it inside of the topics, and filter this get pass logs. Notice that we have already got only one pass log into this get pass logs, so it makes no sense to filter it, but it might make sense once we have 1,000 events inside one smart contract. For example, imagine that we're working with an ERC20 token, and there are about thousands or millions of transactions, and we want to differentiate them, filter them. So what we're going to do is to first of all notice the events. So most of it is transfer events, so we want to get the transfer events, and also we want to know that what kinds of events we had for transfer for this kind of address, right? This address, as I told you earlier, which is this address, right? You need to make some changes on the string and convert it into this, because they're exactly the same. The address is even exactly the same. You need to make it lowercase, add some zeros, slice it, concatenate it, and make it this way. And then once you add this array of topics to this function, then you will get exactly the kind of result that you need. Anyway, we learned how to get the pass logs. There's also another method which is getting the past events, which is not very much different from this. That is, instead of getting past logs, we'll have get past events, and we can filter the transfer events much easier. So here we also need to determine the addresses, and we cannot go on without addressing the addresses, right? So if we want to only get the specific kind of event like this, and we don't want to take care about the addresses, we can do that. But if you want to get the addresses, in the next video I'm going to teach you how to do that. So until the next video, goodbye.